I'm Farmicide, president of the Midnight Foundation, and I have the honor and pleasure of introducing to Brittany Kaiser, CEO of AlphaTon Capital. Brittany, you want to say a few words and introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be back at Consensus Hong Kong. I love the city more than anywhere, and such an amazing opportunity to speak with you on stage earlier today about actually letting people have access to privacy in a user-friendly way where it's accessible. So I'm Brittany Kaiser, as you mentioned, CEO of AlphaTon Capital, NASDAQ ATON, but I really define myself as a data rights activist. I have been working for the past decade to make privacy not only legally required and a regulatory compliance issue around the world, but also to make technologies that are privacy-centric accessible to people, so you don't have to be a technical expert to know that you can actually keep your data private and own your data so that you can empower yourself with technology instead of putting yourself in harm's way.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, as I said. For those who don't know Brittany, you should look up her activities, her experience. She's a lawyer extraordinaire. She's a defender of people's privacy rights. She's taken on some large corporations and successfully won. So she has an extraordinary past, and we're delighted that she's not only here at the Pod Midnight booth, but also partnering with Midnight. So Midnight's zero knowledge infrastructure is coming to Telegram through AlphaTon. Brittany, can you tell the audience a little bit about this partnership?
Yeah, of course. So AlphaTon Capital is focused on making privacy-centric technologies available through the Telegram ecosystem. So one of the largest ecosystems in the world, the only super app that has fully vertically integrated decentralized technologies. And it's also the main app where users are actually able to use Web3 technologies. And for me, that is so essential that over 1 billion people around the world are now able to use Web3 tech. And so it's also the first place where a lot of people have ever used their first bot or AI agent. And so more people use AI agents in Telegram than almost anywhere else. And so we've been partnering with Midnight. Actually, even before I started AlphaTon Capital, I started working on a Midnight Ton integration. Ton is the open network. It is the blockchain that is the back end of the Telegram ecosystem. So in order to use Web3 apps in Telegram, you have to build something on Ton. So last spring, we started working on the Midnight Ton integration, specifically so that we could add rational privacy features to a public blockchain that is normally 100% transparent, so that you could use everything from, payments to identity to other business applications within Telegram safely and securely. And so we've been building that out so that we can deploy 100% privacy-centric, privacy-preserving, privacy by design AI agents in Telegram to over 1 billion people.
That's amazing. You use the phrase rational privacy, something I speak about a lot.
Yeah.
So the audience probably have heard me speak about it many times. What does rational privacy mean to you?
Rational privacy means to me that, a lot of proponents of blockchain technology, including myself, have always been fans of radical transparency. And as a whistleblower, I know that more than most people, which is that we probably say more publicly and put more data in the public space than most people would ever feel comfortable doing. And that's what a lot of decentralized technologies have kind of forced people to do, so that you can see a true public record and a history of data that can be changed or manipulated. But at some point, I think a lot of blockchain technology proponents like myself, when we hope to see that scale to the entire planet, where ubiquitously we're using Web3 backends and all data architecture is actually based on decentralized tech, you can't have something that is 100% transparent all of the time. It's not safe. It doesn't make sense. It's not the way that our world currently works. So again, from personally identifiable information that could be considered your identity or your digital identity to payments and the amount of money in your wallet to who you're transacting with. Right now, that's quite transparent on the blockchain, but that's not the way that it can work if we want the whole world to use these technologies. So rational privacy really means to me that all of this radical transparency is good to a point, and then where it is nearly essential to have privacy, that you can rationally add privacy features where it's not just wanted, it's kind of demanded in order for the tech to be adopted.
Great. I couldn't say that any better. So, you want my job? So, you spoke. Telegram's been a huge success. Billion plus users, strong advocacy for privacy and protecting people's rights, the ability to have that freedom of ACE, as we speak about at midnight, the freedom of association, commerce, expression, and the E stands out very much when I think about everything going on at Telegram. And you speak about bringing AI into Telegram. The agentic AI solutions, bringing that into Telegram is often, as you say, the first place that people get to see it, use it, feel it. But that comes with some risks, I would imagine. So as people begin to use AI for finance, for shopping, for coordination, what changes about privacy needs to be managed there within that sort of new environment?
Well, I think for a while, the way that most people, especially in the crypto community, have first experienced AI agents have been more basic bots, where it's a bot that you deploy in a specific Telegram channel or private group, and that bot maybe has access to one of your wallets that you use for trading. And so that's actually where I started using my first bots. Mm-hmm. And I would have it accessible to one of my wallets, a trading wallet, where I can set parameters and give it a permission set and instructions, and then it will go and do those things for me while I'm sleeping or doing anything else besides, trading random coins. And that was really exciting to see, but it's because you were able to give it limited permissions. And now that agentic AI is coming into its own and having its heyday, we're seeing very new bleeding edge technologies where people are not just giving it access to, a burner wallet. People are giving it access to everything.
Everything is scary.
And I don't just mean, your messages in Telegram with the bot. I mean everything. Data from other apps on your phone, your entire internet history and activity, your behavioral data, maybe even all of your emails from all of time, maybe even the desktop of your computer. And when you start to think about those trillions and trillions of data points, a bot that has access to all of that knows more about you than you know about yourself, and can identify patterns that can be used, for or against you, and you might not have the choice. It depends who designed the LLM.
Yes.
So that's when we start to think about permission structures, the rational privacy. Where do I want to actually permission data where my agent shouldn't get access to certain information, or even if it has access to certain information, it can't share it with third parties, especially the inventors of the LLMs they might be running.
Yes, absolutely. I was very fortunate earlier on. Some of the audience would have seen that I was here with Teo, the founder of SpaceCoin, and I asked him, do people understand privacy? Do they really care about it? Why does the average person who's not doing anything sinister need to have that? And he said something very interesting. He said it's about not being exploited. And it sounds like in the AI solutions that are coming, the risk is that we're letting the stranger inside our house, the person that we wouldn't trust. Suddenly we think they are making our lives easier. We spoke about on stage, and we had a wonderful panel, and grateful for you to be there, where the Web 2.0 companies gave away the internet for free. They gave us access to social media, to research, to AI, to searches for free. And for that, we were grateful. We thought it made our lives easier. And what we didn't recognize was that we actually were giving away our data and being monetized and making them extremely successful, wealthy, powerful. These large corporations now dictate how governments create policies and everything like that. As you say, there is a huge risk that people don't understand. This automation that AI is bringing, that free access time, what risks it creates. We at the Midnight Foundation, as you know, we very much believe in the philosophy of privacy. People being able to protect their assets, their identity, their everyday lives, and having exposure and access to different solutions by selective disclosure through rational privacy. I think that the world slowly is becoming one that is dictated to. Rules are being built to control the vocal minority, that small minority that do bad things or bad actors around the world. We build rules and definitions and control and this transparency that people want for security reasons around that small group, as well as the silent majority who go about their everyday lives doing ordinary things, suddenly we are giving away all of that access. And now we're letting that stranger inside our door. Do you think people understand that risk? Do you think they understand that this automation that AI is giving to them in their lives, the risk that that is introducing?
Yeah, I definitely think that most people around the world don't understand the risks associated with that. And it is the silent majority of people who are going about their business, trying to take care of their family, trying to, build a business or run a company or even work in government. And they're not thinking about what they're sharing with these very powerful tools. And now we have most of the largest, wealthiest companies in the world are worth trillions of dollars or at least hundreds of billions because of the amount of our data that they've collected and the value that that represents. And as we start to move forward into a world that is basically dictated by AI and not as much by humans, we need to start thinking about how do we protect the vast majority of people and not optimize for this minority. And I think there's a really nice quote from legendary founder Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, where he said, human rights should not be negated based off of fear or greed. So we should not say people should no longer have human rights or data rights or the ability to own their data or have privacy just because companies need to make a lot of money or just because we're afraid that there's a small section of people that might be committing crimes.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And again, that's a very important point you touched upon. These technology companies, the large corporations, financial companies, monetize our data. They've become the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, they're almost exponential in terms of their growth. And yet when I think about back to the financial crisis in 2008, which then led to the the Bitcoin white paper and Satoshi and the advent of Bitcoin and then this blockchain industry, people's lives haven't necessarily got wealthier. Most people I speak to, whether they are in successful careers or starting out in life, feel that life is not better, whether it's financially or whether it's from a time perspective. It feels like we need to go back to simpler times. So it is a risk we all see, and I think it's part of the education that we need to think about in terms of making people aware. And also, I think I often speak about is privacy, giving people choice. It's not about hiding. It's about removing that fear of exploitation, whether it's by individuals, whether it's physical harm, whether it's digital harm, social harm. Privacy gives you choice, the ability to decide what you share, when you share it, how you share it. We need technology that allows that. But from choice, you get freedoms. Freedom we take in the Western world very for granted. We know freedoms can be constrained. And if you get choice and privacy, it gives you choice, gives you freedom, gets you empowerment. And that's where I see technology should be. About empowering people and users to be able to harness that as opposed to being exploited by that. So as systems become more autonomous and personalized, and that's the problem with AI and data sort of extraction, how do you think people respond to that risk, to that giving up their personal data, or even giving up how they live their lives?
I think right now people are starting to feel comfortable with how good AI is and how convenient that makes things for them. And for me, when I became a whistleblower 8 years ago, I think the biggest fear was that you would be freaked out by how accurate your digital ads were. It is so much worse than that now. You're not just being targeted with ads that know exactly what you want to buy or exactly how you feel or exactly the color that'll make you click on that button. But you're being shown a reality that is what you want to see and what you want to hear. And so it's these echo chambers and these self-perpetuating biases that start to become very, very dangerous because you can't see the algorithms and what data sets and variables are being used in those algorithms to decide what is being shown to you and what is being withheld from you.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, just to touch on that, it's the algorithms push news to you, information to you, and without knowing it, you become indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking. The world has become more connected through the internet, more connected through social media, and yet at the same time, we're more partisan in our views, and those views have become more and more extreme. So you touch on a very important point there, that these algorithms that magically send you, oh, I need those pair of shoes, or I need that handbag, or I need those trainers, and I need to be in the Maldives celebrating this occasion, also send you data, news, infiltrate your mind in a way that people slowly, I think, are beginning to understand. I think the current generation, I don't know if we're into Gen Z, Gen Alpha, or whichever generation we're on, I think they're putting their phones down. They are spending less time on their phones. They recognize that doom scrolling can be quite dangerous. And yeah, I think what we need to find out is a way, and Midnight working with AlphaTon on this AI strategy, is how do we give people access to that but still protect their rights, their data, their needs, and push information in the right way, in the way that you want accessible to. So I think that's a great point that you raise. So just moving on, when people interact with AI at this scale, and it's everywhere, like you say, it's pervasive, how do we balance that ability to personalize information versus your right to privacy? You can't have both. You can't have personalized ads and have privacy. Something has to give. So where do you see the balance of that?
For me, it's all about permission structures and consent mechanisms. And so when you really think about rational privacy, you think about what data points does my AI assistant or my agent need in order to improve my life, and what does it definitely not need. And so you can keep private what is actually not going to feed into the decision making that will help you do whatever you're trying to do with AI at the moment, but then share everything that's actually going to be helpful. And the less personally identifiable information that you're sharing, the safer it's going to be, of course, but also you can get very granular with what data sets you are sharing and what permissions you're actually giving. And this is where I think rational privacy meets with the kind of consent that we can actually start to think about a future where we have a more ethical relationship with technology, where you can give people applications that they can use to empower themselves, as you rightly said, where you can feel comfortable that I'm going to use this technology and I can use it in a way that I want to use it. I can consensually decide to do something very, very specific, and it can't go off the guardrails because I have only started feeding data into this in a way where I've created those guardrails and I fully understand what they are, and it can't be used against me, or certain data sets are not going to be accessible to third parties, and that has been done by design.
Yes. I mean, one of the things I've spoken about in the past is the fact that when you go to most websites, or most places where you're going to exchange data with a third party, they require you to opt out. And the easy thing is just to click through and not realize you've opted into giving away that data. There are places where that information sharing is useful. Those preferences are useful. I'll give you a real world example this week, which is not digital, it's just more physical. I've been here in Hong Kong. I was also in Japan last week on the midnight tour in Japan. And every time I went to dinner, whatever the menu options or whatever the seating plans for the people I was meeting, the staff at the restaurant already knew I don't eat pork. So they were making the changes to the menu. I didn't even have to ask them. And my wonderful team had planned ahead and made sure that whether it's me or somebody who was vegetarian, all of these things were taken care of. So I went to that domain and I had the service that I required. So that's a form of data sharing, a permissioning that actually ended up to my benefit. So I think about, do you think there's a place, I mean, in your wonderful work you do around legal advocacy, around privacy, that we get to a place where legally all data sites have to you have to opt in. You start opted out. Do you think we get to a place, or do you think the large companies and the lobbyists are way ahead of us and will always have to opt out?
So I've actually been talking about this for years and years because there are now a lot of countries in the world where you are kind of by default opted out and you have to opt in, like the entire European Union now. But that was only since GDPR, and GDPR came into enactment in May 2018, a couple months after I became a whistleblower. And the U.S. is still a by default opted-in country. So if you are in America, you are opted in, and opting out is one of the hardest things you will ever try to do. And so, for me, one of the things that I've advocated for, especially with the Federal Trade Commission in the U.S. and other similar government bodies in other countries, is that for consumer protection, that it's not completely good one or the other. You have to give very clear permission structures so that even at a first grade reading level, people can understand the choices that they're making. So yes, you should probably be by default opted out, but that's going to be hard to create in a company like America. So give people first grade reading level toggles so that you can say, oh, I'm willing to share this data for these reasons or not. I'm willing to share this data for these purposes or to these specific companies, and this will be allowed to color and create my experience in these types of ways, or not. And so something that, even someone who is not technically competent can understand. And, given that one of my cases against Facebook won the FTC $5 billion and basically funded the organization, I really have had a lot of time to engage with them. So I think when we talk about consumer protection, it's about digital literacy and giving people a choice, but making sure that by default their rights are not being violated.
That's a great point, because again, I think in a world where people have less time and want everything instantly, whether it's their Deliveroo, whether it's their laundry, whether it's their shoes, their hoodie, whatever it is, that entry mechanism into a website, into an AI agent, where people have to choose these options. Think about how many sites you touch on a daily basis. I think there's a risk that if it carries on that way, that people just skip through that and give away rights that they don't intend to. So maybe for the builders out there, I just had an idea whether you can build some kind of zero knowledge an ID, which already has your web permissions embedded in it.
Exactly.
So when you go to a website, it effectively knows what your permissioning requirements are. You don't have to select it 100 times. You will select it once. You will store it in Midnight for full privacy. And then from that point, you can present that proof to the website, to the companies, to an AI agent, and then you have universal permissioning out of a single source, which is fully protected. So maybe the builders out there's an idea, come and speak to us at the Midnight Foundation. We'll come and help you see that come to fruition.
Well, that's been something I've really I have been talking about for years, which is that, a lot of people, again, feel like they don't have time, but you might open 100 websites a day and they're asking you a similar set of questions. So if you can have a digital ID that already knows your preferences and you can feed that into your AI agent before you open any app, your AI agent has already given those settings and permission structures, your preferences. And so it's already done for you, meaning you can open an app, you're not presented with 60 pages of legalese. Your AI agent has already digested that for you and made the rational choices for you that you have already educated them on.
So that's why we make good partners, great partners. We're thinking alike. We already think about how we can solve this problem. But yes, that's what we want people to think about. When they come to Midnight, when they come to AlphaTon, think about AI, think about data. We want them to think about how they protect rights, how they protect that data, but how we make it seamless and easy. The problem often with privacy is not very sexy as a topic. Compliance is not very sexy as a topic. And the UX experience is not great. So if you can get to a one-touch solution like we just described, well, that would be absolutely phenomenal. We got to make privacy sexy. We got to make it. Maybe Justin Timberlake can sing about it. I don't know, but we'll take that away and we'll think about it. Okay, before I get too much into my dad jokes. Right, okay, so tell me, how do you think technologies like confidential compute, like zero-knowledge proofs, we've discussed that a few times, maybe I should explain what zero-knowledge proofs are to people, and I'll maybe give an example. How do you think confidential compute, zero-knowledge proofs help keep personal data private while still being useful? So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, zero-knowledge proofs is essentially a mathematical solution to prove to the other side that you have information and you both have that same set of information without actually giving away the underlying data. So the example I often use is there is a safe. Let's assume there's a safe in this room that Brittany and I are looking at. And Brittany says she knows the combination code. I say I know the combination code, but we're at a standoff. If she doesn't want to give the code to me, I don't want to give the code to her because I don't know if she can prove it. So I ask her to step out the room. I will write a little message that I'll sign. and then I'll put that, and maybe I get her to sign it before she leaves the room, and then I'll put that into the safe, and I'll close the safe. And if Brittany can come back and open the safe and read that message back to me with both our signatures on it, we both prove that we know the code to the safe without actually ever revealing it to ourselves. That piece of paper, those two signatures that we didn't fake, proves that. That is zero knowledge proof. But think on a digital scale, that can be done millions and millions of times with much further, stronger calculation than just the two of us managing 6 digits. So going back to the question, confidential compute, zero knowledge proof. How do you think in this world of advanced AI, advanced technologies, how do you think it protects and keeps private data safe and secure while still being useful to the average person?
Well, there's quite a few different components to that, but if you're going to talk about it on a basic level, the truth behind it is every time you actually reveal data, you are endangering that data because you don't know how many databases that is going to end up in. You don't know if those databases are already breached or could potentially easily be breached because you're not the one controlling their cybersecurity. And so if you are using confidential compute with ZK proofs, which the AlphaTon Cocoon AI stack is exactly that, it means you are never revealing data to third parties or even to each side of kind of the data processing equation. So I think let's take a more 10,000 foot view, which means if you want to run an AI product and you're going to contribute data, whether that's a prompt or that's documents or whatever it happens to be, and you want to ask the AI a question, you're putting that data in. It means that both you and the platforms that you are processing it with can't actually see that data, and it is processed in a vertical silo. It never goes to third parties, and then it gives you that answer, and neither the data you've put in nor the data that's being processed nor the answer is shared with third-party databases. So it means those data sets are kept completely private, and you can prove that data has been kept completely private. We even have a midnight layer that can show that none of that data has left anywhere. So that's a huge opportunity for people to be processing AI with more and more sensitive data sets because your data is yours, you fully own it, and it's never going anywhere. So I think right now people are sometimes using AI for less sensitive reasons, but actually, now that it's being integrated into people's daily lives, whether it's information about your personal life or your family or your business, it's starting to get very sensitive, and making sure that you can use confidential compute and ZK proofs is essential. And it's important for people to understand what these things actually mean, because soon you're going to be confronted with choices, and the choices are going to be the brand names that you've always heard of and might be used to using, or the privacy-centric alternative with perhaps brands that you are less familiar with, but protect everything that you're doing and make sure that you own every piece of information that you ever put into AI.
Great answer. So again, data is an interesting topic. We saw in the US that the US got very concerned with TikTok, and they were concerned about the data being used by a third-party nation, in this case, China. And yet, the very largest companies in the US monetize and use that data. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy. We often get concerned about cross-border risks. I suppose sometimes we forget about the risk that sometimes stays at home. So I think the partnership that you're with Midnight, and we're excited by it, and the access, not only to Telegram group, but the proof of concept that actually you can access agentic AI solutions, agents who will go and fulfill your life, make it better, shouldn't take over your life, but you can provide a zero knowledge proof layer to that to ensure that there's no leakage, there's no information getting out that could put you at harm, could put you at exploitation, whether that's a known risk or an unknown risk out there. So very excited by that, looking forward to that coming to fruition. Often one of the things that I get asked is, zero knowledge proofs are very computationally heavy, require a lot of resource, take a lot of time. Again, in a world where people want things instantly, how does that operate within the AI environment? Again, what I would say to people is, you don't really need to prove your identity every second, every millisecond, hundreds, thousands of times a day. Once this agentic AI would be out in the market, they only need to really prove your identity maybe once a day, once an hour, every time there's a command. So And there are also advancements in zero knowledge proof, scaling companies and agents who are helping shrink some of that. There's many advancements there. Here in the Internet Foundation, we're working with quite a few partners in that space. So again, but if there are partners out there who'd like to come and work with us, come and work with this team here, then we're very open to working with them and seeing how we can even condense that proof into a much smaller and quicker solution. So, but coming back to you, Brittany, there's a shift towards treating privacy as infrastructure. Actually, it was discussed earlier on stage when you and I spoke about it with Richard from Google around how privacy is embedded as an optional requirement. It's no longer an optional requirement of infrastructure. And maybe I think we chose the topic at the foundation, but it's a little bit disappointing to think about privacy as infrastructure. So how do we think about it more as a feature? Or should it be embedded in infrastructure? Should it be an automatic infrastructure element? How critical do you think that is? And what's the risk of not acting in the right way there?
Well, for me, the entire reason why I am in the digital asset industry is because, yeah, as someone who used to work in the data science industry, I saw that, it's a huge risk for the entire world to be using database architecture where no data is trackable or traceable and anyone can delete or alter anything at any time. So for me, it's not just the word privacy, it's really data protection and the permission structures and the consent mechanisms and the tracking and traceability of data flows that make me feel that, digital assets and, distributed ledger technology is just really, it needs to be essential architecture. And I've been here as a huge advocate for this space because I see a future that's not too far away where this is just an essential part of database architecture and where this entire crypto community, seems a little silly because we're just all obsessed with database architecture and being so specific about how much we love this database architecture that everyone starts to feel like, well, that was a little intense. Why did you guys need to be that way? And it's just because, the powers that be, governments and, the banking industry and a lot of big tech companies have built their apparatus on data collection, whether that's for surveillance purposes or to build up, a multi-trillion-dollar company. And so having these data permission structures, having tracking and traceability, the ability to keep your data private and know where it's going and decide where it shouldn't go, is a threat to some business models or the threat to the way that some government departments work. And I think that misinformation is starting to be better understood, where companies and governments understand that this type of tracking and traceability can be very good, especially for AI, where you can say, this data set is good, this data set is real, this data set is verified, this data set is consensual or licensed, and we can feed that into AI where we've now kind of regulated the input so we can get much better output. And I think that's not very well talked about, but as DLT starts to be ubiquitous in the back end of data architecture, people are going to start to see that this is not just beneficial to individual rights, this is beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think people forget the or the purpose of blockchain. It wasn't about ownership or trading or anything like that. It was about truth. Blockchain is ultimately at their heart a truth layer. So the concept of AI and blockchain working together makes a lot of sense, particularly to people on both sides of the industry. Suddenly you can have, how do you prove that AI agent is authorized to act on behalf of a certain agent, person? How do you prove that the AI can access and buy access to your bank account, access to your Amazon account, whatever it may be? So that truth layer, whilst bringing in zero knowledge, seems like the perfect combination. AI agents using zero knowledge proofs as a truth to access different opportunities, different access points, different information, while still protecting the vulnerabilities of the individual or the company, seems like the right solution. So again, go back to our partnership, it feels like it could be a great prototype beyond that, a pioneering solution that others may look to. So that's very exciting. We're here in the booth at the Consensus Hong Kong. I've just seen the 10-minute warning from my team, so we could talk forever. One of the things you mentioned earlier on the stage, and I think I wanted to bring up, is less about technology, it's again going back to the legal rights of data and access, is you mentioned that most people, me included, don't actually look at the T's and C's when they access websites. Often they just click, accept the terms, off they go. We just spoke about Disney earlier, where signing the T's and C's of Disney Plus, actually there's a clause in there that says you can't sue Disney, not only for issues with Disney Plus, but if you have an accident at Disney amusement parks. So these T's and C's go far broader and deeper than many people expect. But within AI, and people are using, whether it's OpenAI, GPT, whether it's Claude AI, Grok, there is IP language in there that says actually if you use their technology, they get to own the IP. And then it was interesting to notice that in that audience out there, only 2 people, including you, so you're really only one other person who must be a lawyer, as you pointed out, raise their hand so they actually read the T's and C's. Explain the risks of that to the audience out there.
Well, there's a variety of risks, but the first one is that without actually reading the terms and conditions, you don't understand what you're giving away, and therefore you can't make an educated decision on how you use technology. And I think one of the best ways to understand this more deeply is thinking about how we were taught how to use technology in the first place, which is in school, we were taught how tech functions. We were taught how to use tech, but not how it functions. And so we were told, here, open up this email. Here's how you write an email and use an email account. Here's, for me, it was Ask Jeeves was my first search engine, way before Google. And I was taught this is how you, make a search query and then get some results. But if I would have been told that if my email account was open and I made a search query and Ask Jeeves at the same time, then the browser and Ask Jeeves itself would know who I was because I had personally identifiable information in my email account, and that would link everything I ever asked Ask Jeeves to my personal name forever, and that data would end up in millions of databases around the world and forever color my digital life and digital experience, and even color what AIs decide to tell me or not to tell me. Well, perhaps I would have used technology very differently, but that's not what we teach kids in school.
Yes.
And so you have to be educated in order to make educated decisions, and terms and conditions make it nearly impossible for that to happen. It's written in what we jokingly call legalese, which means only lawyers could possibly understand it, and it's 40, 50, 60 pages of fine print, which is purposefully obfuscated for you to actually understand what they're taking away from you. And so that's a lot of the education and awareness that I work on, is reminding people what you're actually giving away. And I think one of the scariest things that I've seen recently was last week, Sam Altman actually coming out and saying, oh yeah, so if you're creating, your own IP and companies out of my products, well, that's my IP. So whatever you're creating with my IP is also my IP. And that is very, very dangerous to an entire generation of creatives, artists, authors, filmmakers, entrepreneurs who are making their own companies. And now Sam Altman says all of that is his. I've never used an OpenAI product on purpose.
That is quite a scary concept. Sounds like what's his is his and what's yours is his.
Yeah.
It's quite scary, and you're not even married to him.
No, it's a disaster.
It's the wrong place to be. Thank you for highlighting that. Again, I think part of this is not only for us to talk about the partnership, but also to highlight some of the risks within that. That's something that very clearly came up earlier today. So I've been, again, told by the team we've got 5 minutes left. We can keep going on and on. It's getting pretty warm in here, so maybe we need to step up for fresh air. But a couple of last questions. If you think about technology and how it's evolved, and the half-life of technology is getting shorter and shorter, do you think, I'm going to ask this question in a slightly different way to where it's been written down. Do you think people of the next generation in 20, 30 years, 40 years will look back in this period of technology and life as an oddity as to how we just gave our information away? Do you think they look at that as whilst a golden era of technology and advancement, also just an anomaly to how life is in the future, that they are more thoughtful about protecting their assets, protecting their rights, protecting their information. Obviously, something we're giving this away because we appreciate that technology makes our life easier. Do you think they would look at us as being stupid?
Not stupid, but really just exploited in the same way that we look back on slavery and indentured servitude. It's really right now, we are, I wouldn't even say indentured servants. We are, slaves to our digital overlords that have given us, addictive tools and something to busy ourselves with while collecting all of our value and not really giving much value back to us. And I think in the future, hopefully not too long in the future, we're going to move towards what I think, Elon Musk calls the techno-utopia, and I am someone that is a huge proponent of this. It's why I consider myself a digital rights activist and why I'm obsessed with data ownership, because I believe that if we can actually own all of our data legally, which I've helped work on over the past decade and now is real, regulatorily and of course with technology to actually, I would say, implement those rights in practicality, and we can actually own all of our information and license that out, we would earn enough money every day to take care of our basic needs and much, much more. So right now, if you owned all of your data and you were taking a percentage of that revenue, you could easily earn enough to at least pay for your groceries and clean water, and food and clean water are the two most basic human rights. And if you have special data sets, like you have a rare disease, or you have a very niche interest, that data can become so incredibly valuable that it's much more than a salary. And so the way that I know the future is going to look is that technology is something that empowers you and allows you to, what the late great Dr. Stephen Hawking said, was to live a life of luxurious leisure, which he said we're building technology so that, all of the grunt work and menial labor can be done for us and we can relax to enjoy our passions. And that's really where I believe technology can go, but we need to be fierce advocates of the ability for empowering and ethical technologies to be the future and make sure that we can get away from the exploitative products of the past.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody at home, for joining in, for listening to the latest podcast from Midnight here at Consensus Hong Kong. I know I will go away from this conversation very learned. I will probably go into some dinner conversation, use some of your quotes and knowledge, and feel clever for a short period of time. I hopefully everybody's taken away some understanding of not only why privacy matters, why controlling the access for data and agentic AI matters, and the partnership that AlphaTon and Midnight have gone into. Brittany, you've been a wonderful guest. Appreciate, as always, being in your company and learning so much. And from me, what's left to say is GN from Hong Kong and the Midnight Foundation in the Midnight booth.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.